All right, back in the old Realist News studio, not driving to work doing a video. Or I'm just sitting in front of a green screen with a fake picture behind me. Same thing. So, little small webbot update from Cliff High. And this is interesting. Got a few different things he's mentioned here. Like, I don't even know where to start. Current trends information. Markets context updates. Temporal markers are now taking place, according to him. And he has the quote, "Tiers of red smoke seem to be pointing to a global stock crisis that will originate in China that will be about counterfeit stocks and bonds, or fakes, that are loose in the global stock markets, will reach the U.S. stock markets in late January or early February and have the words in the data attached, greater than half of all U.S. stocks are fake or counterfeit." Let me read that whole thing again. Temporal markers now falling, or falling now. And what he's being specific about is tiers of red smoke. Now, for those of you that don't know what a tier or what a temporal marker is in the webbot, first of all, because I know I've got some new people who don't know what the hell a webbot is. It was a piece of software designed in 1997. They first created it. Creator is Cliff High, is his name. They originally created this thing for his own benefit, to see if it could determine future stock prices, what the market's going to do. And the way it works is this program scours the internet for certain, what I like to call high-profile keywords. Keywords people don't normally use, or language people don't normally use in normal conversation. So any of these words that he designated as words you don't normally use in a conversation stand out as a red flag. So anywhere it finds these kind of words and conversations on the internet, it takes a little snapshot of a sentence or two in front of the word and after the word, and then compiles it. And then once it compiles it, it starts to see how many other different websites have similar language or that exact keyword with similar language attached to the keyword. And then it filters out that. And then it's left with whatever's there. And if enough of it's there, then he, I assume, takes that as a webbot hit. Or not a hit, but it's data worthy. We're going to put this in the report. We're going to read it and make a forecast that this event may happen. And notice I do say may happen, not 100% happen, because this webbot thing is not 100% right. Sometimes it's amazingly right. Sometimes it's not. So it's right enough that I've been following it for a few years. And I've seen a few spectacular hits on this thing. And at the same time, I've seen things not happen at all. The problem is when the stuff keeps coming up in the data, report after report after report, and it still has data on it, but it hasn't happened yet, it's usually a telltale sign it's definitely going to happen, just not yet. It's like confirmation that, don't worry, it's coming. So this webbot update, when he talks about temporal marker, what he is saying is there's some data in the webbot report that is worthy of me telling everybody, hey, look out for this event or events. And we'll know we're getting close to the event when X, Y, and Z happen. Though X, Y, and Z will happen first, that is a temporal marker. When that happens, you can expect the other part of the event or the event to take place. Temporal marker may not be anything significant at all. And in this case, it probably is not. But what he is saying is some temporal markers have been hit right now, which is telling him the rest of the data may be coming true here shortly. So whatever he is calling the tiers of red smoke, and to be honest with you, I read the last webbot report, but that term does not stick out as me remembering that. That doesn't mean I'm going to remember it, because there's a lot of stuff I don't remember in these web reports because I read so many of them. And people like to remind me later, hey, Joe, check this out. Speaking of which, this brutal cold spell that just came across was forecast in an early January 2013, early 2013, maybe it was April, Webbot report that I actually read on YouTube, the summary of it. And someone was kind enough to send it to me and remind myself that I said such and such out of the Webbot report. Fast forward to 6 minutes, whatever. Here's the part about the brutal cold thing coming. And it was pretty interesting. Aside from that, this thing says this temporal marker, again, is a marker saying something's going to happen next. And we already knew a while back what was going to happen next. Now the temporal marker's been hit. So what he is saying is, based on his data, seems to be pointing to a global stock crisis that will originate in China, that will be about counterfeit stocks and bonds, fakes, that are loose in the global stock markets, will reach the U.S. market sometime in late January or early February, and have the words, greater than half of all U.S. stocks are fake/counterfeit. That's going to be attached to it. Now this right here, I got to tell you, and it just hit me right now, like I wasn't thinking about that. It just hit me. Do you remember when Hurricane Sandy came through New York? And it was odd how it was going out like that, and then all of a sudden, boom, just like someone hit with a little baseball bat, bink, went right into Wall Street, basically. New York got hit. And there was a building at 55 Water Street that is part of the, it's called Seed & Co. Matter of fact, I'll pull Bill O'Reilly and we'll do it live. I'll just type Google 55 Water Street. That is, according to Wikipedia, it's a skyscraper in the financial district of Lower Manhattan. It was completed in 1972. Where is Seed & Co.? Because Seed & Co. is the one. Seed & Company, private company information, 55 Water Street. This company is part of the DTC, which is a Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation. Every single stock, bond, you name it, that ever has existed in the United States of America goes to that corporation. And I believe I did a video on this, by the way, a pretty in-depth video. So I had all my ducks in a row, I had all my research so I could read it. Now I got to go back on bozo memory. But this DTC, Depository Trust Company, has the little subsidiary, Seed & Co., and that's CEDE and Co. And it just so happens to be at 55 Water Street, and they just so happen to have a basement, very, very secure vault that stores all of these stocks and bonds that are ever created. And if you as a person or company or whatever decided you ever in your life wanted to invest in some stock, you've got some shares of some company, when those shares were created and given to you and you paid for them, they are put in, I want to say they call it street name or whatever name. It's a fictitious name. And that fictitious name is these guys, 55 Water Street. Unless you explicitly state at the time you got those bonds or stocks that you want it in your name, which nobody even knows that there's even a choice. So naturally, you just do it the regular way. And the regular way, it goes into their name. And by chance, when Hurricane Sandy, I know it was just an act of God, Hurricane Sandy flooded, according to their public response that I read online, they sustained some water. They sustained flooding damage in their vault, the same vault in which I think they said $35 trillion worth of bonds, stocks, etc. were located. That was the last I heard of it. There was no other information since then that I've come across that stated, well, how bad was it? What exactly got destroyed? Etc. So when I read that just now about this global stock crisis, China, it stems out of China. It has to do with counterfeit stocks and bonds that are loose in the global stock markets, and that it's coming to the American markets. It says it will reach the U.S. markets in late January or early February and have the words, greater than half of all U.S. stocks are fake/counterfeit. You would really need, if this was a global scam by the banksters, which is, if they're counterfeit, you could be rest assured that that's exactly what the case is. The bankers would have had to have flooded that vault out. Act of God. Congress, judges, police department, FBI, Justice Department. It was an act of God. We did not destroy those documents. They're just gone. They got flooded out. So is that, because I said it at the time when I did the video, I said I have no idea what's going to happen in the future. But for this thing to get flooded out, it has all stocks and bonds located in this building, $35 trillion worth of whatever. They flooded that for a reason, and I do not know the reason just yet. But I said in the future, whenever some big thing happens, and it goes back to that, and you hear that, well, they lost something and water damage, whatever, then we'll know it was bingo, that's it. Now, this hasn't happened yet. And I got to be honest with you, Webbot, I've seen many times when a forecast did not even happen a year later than it was expected. It was after that. Easily. Sometimes longer. So when I hear the words late January, early February 2014, I already know maybe it'll be 2015. Maybe it'll be 2016. Maybe it'll be spot on like sometimes it is. There's no telling. It's just as good as this thing can get. You have to take it for what it is. Knowing this information is worth it for me. I don't care if it happens this January or this February. At least I know it. It was written. And when it happens, it'll be a doozy. So this is incredible. If this is actually word for word correct in the Webbot, and it didn't misjudge or whatever, anything in it, and it's actually going to be spot on, even if it's later, but the actual data is spot on, that half of all these stocks are fake, fraudulent, counterfeit. That would be unbelievable. But for most people, me, absolutely believable. So at the same time, could it be the commodities futures contracts that are fraudulent? Because all they do is print more and more and more of these futures contracts to put out the fires, to drop the price of gold and silver. And as soon as the price rises again, they just print more and then flood the market with the newly printed contracts. There's no backing. There's no real gold and silver that backs the contracts. They just hit P, Control Alt P for print, shortcut in their keyboard. And then they print more and then flood the market with paper, causing the price to fall. That would make more sense to me than the actual stock market. Because they have to prove, they're going to have to show that, not even show it, but that would make sense. How could they push the price down for so long? There's only so many contracts out there backed by so much gold and silver. And last time we all checked, massive gold and silver were leaving inventory for 2 or 3 years now. So there's no way they increase massive production so that they can increase the paper creation because they've got the backing now. That's not the case. It's actually the opposite. They're losing more silver and gold, yet they're pushing more paper. So it would only make sense to me that they've fraudulently created paper that really never existed. And that makes more sense than just the stock market. However, this is what the Webbot said, so I'm repeating it. Now, he says, forecast language about Fed existential crisis, that's a keyword, Fed existential crisis, is appearing on schedule, precursor, or temporal marker, expected to peak around April 2014. So I clicked on this link, because he has a link to it, seeing a lot more of the Zero Hedge and Reuters. So I'm going to go to Zero Hedge, which he links to, about this existential problem. And he's got a title here. Mark Spitznagel asks, wouldn't we be better off without central banks? And happy 100th year anniversary birthday, Federal Reserve, now please go away, is how he titles this. And he goes on to talk about the Fed, we don't need it. Now, we have an article from Reuters in which it says, Bernanke says Fed legitimacy depends on public communication. This was posted December 16th, by the way. Federal Reserve must clearly explain its decisions to Americans and convince them that the policies are in their best interest, Chairman Ben Bernanke said on Monday, without specifically discussing monetary policy. You mean to tell me that this guy who has destroyed the whole... doubled our debt in 5 years. Doubled our national debt in 5 years. Printing money like you can't believe. Quantitative easing, as they call it. $85 billion a month purchasing our own debt to create more debt. Purchasing our own bonds to create more money, more debt. And we have to borrow that money into existence. You would say, who in the hell does he think he is? He's the one in charge when we've doubled our national debt and it was 8 or 9 trillion. It's now pushing 18 trillion. We're over 17 trillion now. That's doubling it. And it's not like you doubled it from 1 trillion to 2 trillion. We went from 9 plus another 9 trillion in the span of a few years. It took our country from the time it became the United States in 1776 till approximately 1980 to accumulate $1 trillion in debt. Most of which was accumulated from 1913 till 1980, because 1913 is when the Federal Reserve came into existence. Right after that, we had the income tax law, because they know they had to tax us so that our taxes could pay back the interest, or pay the interest on the newly created dollars that the Federal Reserve was going to be printing, because they have to have bonds created first, treasury bonds. They put them out of auction. Oh, you've got $10 billion in treasury auctions that went through today. Whoever bought those treasury bonds has to get paid back interest, which is why they had to tax Americans, income tax. We never had to pay income tax before 1916 or whatever the exact year was, 1913 to 1916. And today, we've doubled our debt, and we've been taxing Americans this whole time. And you have to sit back and say, for what? If they doubled the debt, and we're not getting taxed anymore since the last few years, it stayed the same, why don't they just print another 5 or 10 or 8, whatever trillion? Why do they even need to take money out of my damn paycheck? That's a damn good question, and it remains to be answered. So we have this little speech by Ben Bernanke saying that he said the central bank's legitimacy and independence relies on two-way communication with the public. He set the step down on January 31st, 2014. So on his way out, he's going to say, yeah, we need more transparency. We need to convince the people and show them that we have their best interest in mind, because he says that. We need to show the people, ultimately, the legitimacy of our policies rests on the understanding and support of the broader American public whose interests we are working to serve. No, Mr. Bernanke, you moron. How dare you say such a stupid, idiotic thing as if we're a bunch of morons? You've been serving the bankers your entire time. Your entire 2 terms of being Federal Reserve Chairman. And on your way out, literally a month left to go, you have the nerve to say what all the Americans really want to say. You need to serve the public. What you're doing is not good. We need transparency, right? Now he's saying that. So that's what Half Past Human, which is the website Cliffy, was referring to. So he says the forecast language about Fed existential crisis is appearing on schedule. That's part of it. Bitcoin, he says, $3,405 per Bitcoin is at the point at which the manipulators of the markets, lose control over precious metals markets and likely others, he says. Still projected to end of second week in January 2014. Still projected to end of second week in January 2014. Well, we're on the second week right now. And 1, 2, that would be around next Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, around there. So what he is saying, and he said this before, and he thought originally Because the webbot, one of the things that sucks about the webbot is when there's money and numbers with decimal points, it has been known to get the decimal point wrong. It's just the way it is. And he said back when Bitcoins, the highest they ever got was $250. He said, we're seeing a number 305 or 340, 340 or 3405. I think it was, around $340. Well, shortly, a couple weeks, 2-3 weeks later, it went to 250, 260, 280, 300, 320, 330. Blew past that. Calmed down a little bit. I end up emailing Cliff, asking him, hey, is this webbot hit? It's over $340. And he ended up replying back a second time, stating that he believes that it wasn't $340 or $4 or whatever. It was $3,004 roughly, or $40. Or in this case, he's got $3,405. So somewhere around $3,000 per Bitcoin is what he is expecting to happen. And when that happens, that is the precursor. That is the temporal marker, if you will, for the manipulators to lose control over the rigging of the precious metals markets and other markets, likely, he says. He says, remember, real markets are volatile, especially when they are humanity-wide and nearly instantly communicative. He's got a couple of things about Bitcoin. Just some stuff about how to, get Bitcoins or where to buy them. That's not that important. And he says, oops, this is earlier on than what I've read. Oops, sorry, it's $3,405 US to the Bitcoin, at which time, according to our data, near the end of the second week in January 2014. Yes, I know, improbable, but data is data, wrong or right, reported as it presents itself to us here at Half Past Human. We get a plateau for a while. Now, he wrote this in his comments there, November 17th, 2013. So, time frames, all I need to know is what to look for. If the time frame comes and goes, I don't just throw away what he said. Okay, it didn't happen, just get rid of it. Because I've seen too many times it happened later. Sometimes extraordinarily awesome, just later. Missed the target date completely. Other times, spot on dates. I've been doing this for years. I've been reading him for years. I've been following him for years. I've talked with the guy. I've emailed the guy. Okay, I've been doing this a long time. I know what to expect. So I don't get my hopes up on anything. I don't get discouraged on anything because I know how this thing is. That's pretty much it for the update. Another thing I'm going to share with you, because I'm talking about Bitcoin and stuff like that. I mentioned I was working with a guy that fronted some money for me to buy all the equipment to mine these things. And I have still not received the video cards since early December when I ordered them. And I just got an email today saying from Amazon, we're still trying to locate some video cards. Do you still want us to try? If not, by February 7th, we'll quit anyways. And I understand now you can actually trade the altcoins, which you always could, but you can actually treat them as like FX, Forex currency trading. You can trade a world coin for a Litecoin or a Litecoin for the Bitcoin, and whatever altcoin is doing good at the time, you can exchange those for Bitcoins. And then when another coin comes up, you take your Bitcoins, exchange them for that coin, let the price rise, and exchange them back into Bitcoins. So I'm going to start looking into that. And my advice right now is that, thanks to this, my pal Steve over on from YouTube, he's made some very good points. That why screw around with mining rigs and hearing fans and electric bills and all that crap dealing with that, when all you got to do is take some money, buy a couple Bitcoins, $2,000 worth, let's say, and start trading them on like a site like Cryptsy or whatever, where they've got a bunch of the altcoins and Bitcoins. You can just trade them back and forth. The ultimate goal is to just turn all that into Bitcoins. The bottom line is, if this webbot stuff is right, time's ticking. Time is ticking rapidly, urgently. So I think it's about time I start looking into that. So take care.